My name is Brooke Wilson, and at 32, I never expected a text would shatter 15 years of friendship. There's no place for you at my wedding, Allison wrote, the words burning into my screen and heart simultaneously. The person I considered family had betrayed me without warning, leaving me gasping for air in the break room at work. I booked a spontaneous vacation just to escape the humiliation, never imagining that distance would reveal the truth behind her betrayal. Sometimes the people we trust the most are wearing the most convincing masks. If you've ever had a friendship that ended in betrayal, let me know where you're watching from, hit that like and subscribe button, and join me as I share how my escape to paradise revealed what was happening behind my back all along. Allison Harris and I met during freshman orientation at Berkeley. I spotted her across the crowded dorm lounge, looking as overwhelmed as I felt. She was arranging and rearranging her welcome packet while I was pretending to text friends from high school who had already forgotten me. When the icebreaker activity forced us to find partners, we gravitated toward each other like two planets caught in each other's orbit. Thank God, she whispered as we paired up. If I had to tell one more stranger my fun fact about being double-jointed in my elbows, I was going to scream. I laughed, feeling the tension break. Mine was that I can recite all 50 states alphabetically. Want to hear? She rolled her eyes but smiled. Maybe after 3 shots of whatever cheap vodka they're serving at the first dorm party. That was Allison, blunt, funny, and instantly comfortable with herself in a way I envied. Where I overthought everything, she acted on impulse. I analyzed situations from every angle while she dove in headfirst. We were opposites in so many ways, which is probably why we balanced each other so perfectly. We ended up as roommates by luck of the housing lottery. Our tiny dorm room became our sanctuary as we navigated the chaos of college life. Late-night study sessions turned into deep conversations about our families, our hopes, and our fears. I told her things I'd never admitted to anyone else, like how terrified I was of disappointing my parents who had sacrificed everything for my education. She confessed her fear that her intelligence was the only interesting thing about her. During finals week of our first semester, Allison found me having a panic attack in our bathroom. Instead of freaking out, she sat on the cold tile floor with me until my breathing returned to normal, then made me tea and helped me organize my study materials into manageable chunks. A month later, I returned the favor when her boyfriend from home broke up with her via text. I held her while she cried, then helped her craft the perfect "I'm doing amazing without you" social media posts. By sophomore year, we had established our ritual of Sunday brunches. No matter how busy our weeks were, we reserved Sunday mornings for just us. We'd find a new cafe each week, order too much food, and download our lives to each other. It was during one of these brunches that Allison held my hand as I cried about my father's cancer diagnosis. I don't know what to do, I admitted, feeling helpless and small. We'll figure it out together, she promised. Whatever you need, I'm here. And she was. When my father's condition worsened junior year, she drove me home every weekend so I could visit him. She took notes for me in classes I missed and explained the material in ways that somehow made sense even when my mind was elsewhere. When he passed away during spring break, Allison was the one who helped me write his eulogy, who stood beside me at the funeral, who made sure I ate and showered in those foggy days afterward. Your dad was so proud of you, she told me one night as we sat looking at old family photos. I only met him a few times, but the way he talked about you, it was like you hung the moon. Those words became a lifeline I clung to in my grief. Our friendship wasn't just built on the serious moments, though. We had enough inside jokes to fill a book, references that would make us burst into laughter while everyone else looked confused. There was the pancake incident from sophomore year that we swore never to discuss with outsiders. The elaborate prank we pulled on our dorm RA that became legend. Our joint Halloween costumes that got progressively more ridiculous each year. We had other friends, of course. Our circle expanded to include Jess, Mia, and Taylor, who became our core group. But everyone knew that Allison and I had a special bond. Even within our group, we were a unit, Brooke and Allison, almost one word. During a wine night our senior year, after too many glasses of cheap Chardonnay, we made a pact. "You'll be my maid of honor someday," Allison declared, raising her plastic cup in a toast. "And I'll be yours. No matter what." "No matter what," I echoed, clinking my cup against hers. "And we'll make sure the other doesn't wear some hideous bridesmaid dress," she added with a laugh. "Speak for yourself," I teased. "I'm thinking neon green taffeta for you." After graduation, we faced our first real separation. I landed a job at a marketing firm in San Francisco, while Allison pursued her master's degree in New York. The distance was hard after 4 years of living in each other's pockets, but we adapted. We scheduled regular video calls, sent care packages, and planned visits whenever we could afford the flights. "Distance is just a number," Allison said during one of our calls. "Some friendships aren't meant to survive the real world, but we're not most people." She was right. Despite the miles between us, our connection remained strong. When she struggled with the intensity of her graduate program, I sent her encouraging texts every morning. When I went through a devastating breakup, she flew out for a weekend of ice cream and bad movies. "Some people come into your life for a season," my mother told me once. "The really special ones stay through all seasons." I thought Allison and I would weather every season together. I never imagined one of us would choose to walk away. 2 years ago, everything changed when Allison met James. She had moved back to California after completing her master's program, taking a prestigious position at a financial consulting firm in San Francisco. We were thrilled to be in the same city again, resuming our Sunday brunches and building adult lives in parallel. When she first mentioned James, it was casual, just another date in a series of Bumble matches and setups. "He works in venture capital," she said, scrolling through her phone to show me his profile picture. "Harvard Business School, owns a condo in Pacific Heights. Way out of my league, but he asked me out, so." I still remember the photo, James with perfect white teeth and a tailored suit that screamed old money. But Allison seemed genuinely excited, so I was excited for her. "When do I get to meet him?" I asked after they'd been dating for a few weeks. "Soon," she promised. "Let him pass the 3-month mark first. You know how picky you are." I laughed it off, but something about her comment felt strange. I had never been particularly judgmental about her boyfriends before. The 3-month mark came and went. Then 6 months. I began to notice subtle changes in Allison. She canceled our brunches more frequently, always with legitimate-sounding excuses: work emergencies, James's family events, charity galas I knew I wouldn't be invited to. When I finally met James at a dinner party they hosted, he was polite but distant. The real surprise was his best friend Tyler, who seemed to take an instant dislike to me. Throughout the evening, I caught him watching me with narrowed eyes, whispering comments to James that made them both glance my way. Did I do something to offend Tyler? I asked Allison when I helped her clear plates. "Tyler's just protective," she said, not meeting my eyes. "He's known James since prep school." "Well, he's looking at me like I'm planning to steal the silver." She laughed uncomfortably. "Don't be dramatic, Brooke. Not everyone has to love you." The comment stung, but I brushed it off. That night was the first time I noticed how different Allison seemed in James's world. She used phrases I'd never heard from her before, referenced private clubs and vacation spots I knew she'd never visited prior to meeting him. She even laughed differently, a controlled, musical sound that replaced her usual snorting giggle. Over the next few months, our communication became increasingly one-sided. I would text, she would respond hours later with brief messages. I would suggest plans, she would counter with alternatives that always seemed to include James and his friends. I was introduced to this new circle gradually, people with summer homes and family foundations, who discussed their investment portfolios over drinks. Next to them, my marketing job felt small, my apartment in the Mission District shabby. I tried to engage in their conversations about yacht clubs and ski chalets, but I always felt like an imposter. Worse, I could see Allison watching me during these gatherings, as if measuring me against her new friends and finding me lacking. The breaking point came at a dinner party at James's friend Maxwell's penthouse. I arrived wearing a dress I'd splurged on, feeling confident until I saw all the other women in designer outfits that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Allison barely acknowledged me when I arrived, deep in conversation with a woman named Catherine who apparently shared her Pilates instructor. When I finally managed to join their circle, Catherine was describing her recent charity gala. "We raised over $2 million, she said, sipping champagne. "Of course, that's nothing compared to what the Stevensons pulled in last month, but not bad for a first effort." "Amazing," Allison responded, nodding appreciatively. "James and I are chairing the hospital benefit next spring. We should compare notes." I stood there, feeling invisible, remembering how Allison and I used to volunteer at the animal shelter together. How we once organized a campus food drive and celebrated raising $500 like it was a fortune. Remember when we thought selling enough cupcakes to buy new books for that after-school program was our greatest achievement? I said, trying to remind her of our shared history. Allison's smile tightened. God, college volunteer work. So adorably naive, right? Catherine laughed politely while I felt my face burn. In that moment, I didn't recognize my best friend. Later that night, I found Allison alone in the kitchen. "What was that about?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "The comment about being naive?" She sighed, checking to make sure we were alone. "It was just a joke, Brooke. Don't be so sensitive. You've been different lately. With James, with these people." "Different how? More successful? More ambitious?" There was an edge to her voice I'd never heard before. "No, just, not you. It's like you're playing a part." Her expression hardened. "Maybe this is the real me, and you just can't handle that I've outgrown our college personas." I stepped back, stung. "I don't care about any of this," I gestured around the luxurious apartment. "I care about you. About us." Her expression softened slightly. "I'm sorry. It's been stressful balancing everything. James's world is just different. I'm still adjusting." I wanted to believe her, but as I watched her rejoin the party, slipping seamlessly back into her new role, I wondered if our friendship could survive this transformation. The next day, she called and apologized more sincerely. We had a heart-to-heart that felt like old times, and I convinced myself that we'd be okay. That this was just a rough patch in a friendship strong enough to withstand any challenge. I was wrong. 8 months into Allison and James's relationship, she called me at midnight, her voice breathless with excitement. "He proposed," she practically screamed into the phone. We were at his family's vineyard in Napa, and he had the whole terrace covered in roses and candles. "Brooke, the ring is insane. It's his grandmother's diamond reset by some famous jeweler. I can't even look directly at it." I pushed aside my complicated feelings about James and focused on my best friend's happiness. "I'm so happy for you, Allie. This is incredible. I know we've had our ups and downs lately," she continued, "but there was never any question who my maid of honor would be. You've been my person since freshman year." Warmth flooded through me. Despite everything, our bond was still special. "I can't wait," I told her sincerely. "Whatever you need, I'm here." The engagement party was held at James's parents' estate in Marin County. I expected to help plan it, but when I offered, Allison informed me that James's mother had hired an event planner. "But don't worry," she assured me, "you'll have plenty to do for the actual wedding." The first red flag appeared when I arrived at the engagement party and discovered that Allison had asked Catherine to help coordinate the bridesmaids' arrival times and duties. "I just needed someone who knows the venue," Allison explained when I questioned her about it. "Catherine's family has worked with the staff here before." I smiled and nodded, ignoring the sting. Throughout the evening, I watched Allison move through the crowd, accepting congratulations with practiced grace. Several times, I caught Tyler watching me with that same suspicious expression from before. During a quiet moment, he approached me at the bar. Quite the party, isn't it? He said, his tone suggesting I should be impressed. It's beautiful, I agreed. Allison deserves the best. She does, he nodded. Which is why it's good she's finally moving in the right circles. James has introduced her to people who can really help her career, her social standing. It's a whole different world. There was something pointed in his statement that made me uncomfortable. Allison was always destined for great things, I said. She's brilliant and ambitious. Tyler smiled thinly. Of course. But we both know there's a difference between potential and the right connections. He raised his glass in a mock toast. To old friendships and new beginnings. As he walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that there had been a threat embedded in his words. The following weeks brought a flurry of wedding planning activities. Allison created a bridal party group chat that included me, Catherine, two of James's cousins, and a woman named Vanessa who Allison had apparently bonded with at her new yoga studio. I didn't know any of them well, but I was determined to fulfill my maid of honor duties perfectly. I suggested brunch to discuss the bridal shower, but Allison redirected us to a planning session at Catherine's country club instead. Throughout the meeting, my ideas were politely acknowledged, then subtly dismissed. When I suggested a cooking class for the shower, something Allison and I had always talked about doing together, Catherine countered with a proposal for a spa weekend at a resort in Sonoma. That sounds lovely, Allison said, not meeting my eyes. And it would be great content for the wedding Instagram. I didn't even know there was a wedding Instagram. Planning the bachelorette party brought similar frustrations. The intimate weekend in Big Sur I'd researched was vetoed in favor of a lavish trip to Las Vegas, complete with a suite at the Bellagio and VIP table service arranged by one of James's connections. But you've always said Vegas isn't your scene, I reminded Allison during a rare moment alone. She shrugged. People change. The girls are excited about it. The girls. Somehow, I was no longer included in that category. The bridesmaid dress shopping experience was perhaps the most uncomfortable. I'd taken a day off work to join, expecting it to be a special moment between Allison and me, with the others offering support. Instead, I found myself relegated to the sidelines as Catherine and Vanessa dominated the conversation. We need something that will photograph well at the venue, Catherine insisted, pulling dresses in a color I knew Allison had never liked. When I pointed this out, Allison looked embarrassed. Actually, James and I decided on a different color palette. The wedding planner thinks it will complement the setting better. I bit my tongue and watched as they selected gowns that cost more than my monthly rent. When it came time to try them on, I struggled with the sample size, which was too small for my frame. We can order it in your size, the boutique owner assured me, though her expression suggested I was creating an inconvenience. I caught Vanessa and Catherine exchanging glances. Later, I overheard Catherine whisper something about alterations only going so far. That night, I called Allison, determined to have an honest conversation. I feel like I'm being pushed aside, I admitted. Like nothing I suggest matters. You're being paranoid, she responded, sounding distracted. Wedding planning is stressful, and everyone has opinions. I'm trying to balance a lot of different relationships here. But we've been friends for 15 years. Doesn't that count for something? She sighed. Of course it does. But James's family is very traditional, and they have certain expectations. This isn't just about me anymore. I wanted to ask when she had started caring so much about meeting other people's expectations, but I held back. I just miss you, I said instead. I miss you too, she replied, but her tone lacked conviction. Things will calm down after the wedding. I wasn't so sure. The bachelor and bachelorette weekend in Las Vegas was the breaking point. From the moment we arrived, I felt like an outsider in what was supposed to be my best friend's celebration. Vanessa had taken over most of the planning, coordinating with James's best man to arrange a joint evening at an exclusive nightclub. I watched as Allison knocked back shots with her new friends, laughing at inside jokes I wasn't part of. When I tried to remind her of our college adventures, she cut me off. Let's not bore everyone with ancient history, she said, her words slightly slurred. Tonight is about the future. Later, as the group moved from the club to a private poker room, I found myself sitting alone at the bar. Tyler approached, looking surprisingly sympathetic. Not your scene, he asked, sliding onto the stool beside me. Not particularly, I admitted. He ordered us both drinks. Can I give you some advice, Brooke? As someone who's known James a long time? I nodded, wary but curious. Allison is entering a different world now. James's family, their social circle, they have expectations. Not everyone from your past fits into your future. His words confirmed my worst fears. Are you saying I don't fit? Tyler shrugged. I'm saying Allison has choices to make. And James is very concerned about appearances. Allison isn't like that, I insisted. She doesn't care about status. His smile was almost pitying. The Allison you knew in college might not have. But people change when they see what's possible. When doors open that they never knew existed. I left Las Vegas the next morning, claiming a work emergency. Allison barely noticed. 3 weeks after the Vegas weekend, I was at my desk reviewing a marketing campaign when my phone buzzed with a text from Allison. I smiled, hoping it was about our lunch plans for the following day. Instead, what I read made my stomach drop through the floor. Brooke, this is really difficult for me to say, but after a lot of thought, I've decided there's no place for you at my wedding. Our friendship has been important to me, but I've realized you're no longer a good fit for this stage of my life and the celebration we're planning. I hope you can understand this isn't personal, just a necessary decision as James and I build our future together. I'll reach out after things settle down. I stared at the screen, convinced I was misreading. My hand started shaking so badly I had to put the phone down. The message was so formal, so cold, it didn't sound like Allison at all. Yet there it was, dismissing 15 years of friendship as if it were an outdated accessory. My first instinct was to call her. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried again with the same result. I typed and deleted multiple responses, ranging from furious to pleading. Finally, I simply wrote, "Can we please talk about this?" No response. The shock gave way to a wave of nausea so intense I had to rush to the bathroom. I locked myself in a stall and tried to control my breathing as tears burned behind my eyes. This couldn't be happening. Not Allison. Not the person who had held me through my father's funeral, who knew all my secrets, who had promised to stand beside me through everything. When I returned to my desk, my colleague Diane looked at me with concern. "Are you okay? You're white as a sheet." I couldn't form words to explain what had happened. How do you tell someone that the person you trusted most in the world just cut you out of her life via text message? Instead, I mumbled something about feeling ill and focused on my computer screen, seeing nothing. During my lunch break, I forwarded a screenshot to my sister Claire. Her response was immediate. "What the actual fuck? Who does she think she is? I'm coming over tonight with wine and we're burning her pictures." Claire's outrage was comforting, but it couldn't fill the hollow feeling spreading through my chest. I spent the rest of the workday on autopilot, smiling mechanically when necessary, while my mind replayed every recent interaction with Allison. Had I said something offensive? Done something unforgivable? Was this Tyler's influence, or James's, or had Allison simply decided I wasn't sophisticated enough for her new life? On the train ride home, I scrolled through our text history, looking for clues I might have missed. Our conversations had grown shorter, more superficial over the past year, but there was nothing that hinted at this level of disconnection. I found myself rereading messages from years earlier, inside jokes, late-night confessions, plans for trips we'd never take now. That first night alone in my apartment was the worst. I moved between disbelief, devastation, and fury. I pulled out photo albums from college, staring at images of Allison and me with our arms around each other, wondering if she had been genuine even then or if I had imagined the depth of our connection. Around midnight, a masochistic impulse led me to Instagram. I hadn't checked social media all day, afraid of what I might find. My instincts were right. There was a new post from Catherine, showing the bridal party at what appeared to be a dress fitting. In my place stood a woman I vaguely recognized from James's office, smiling widely with her arm around Allison. The caption read, "Final fittings with this gorgeous bride and her dream team." The post was from that morning. Allison had replaced me within hours of sending that text. Had she already planned this? How long had she known she was going to cut me out? I closed the app and threw my phone across the room, then immediately retrieved it to make sure it wasn't broken. As I checked for damage, an advertisement for flight deals appeared on my screen. Without really thinking, I clicked on it and found myself browsing destinations. Somewhere far away. Somewhere I could disappear until the humiliation faded. Costa Rica. A beachfront resort with a last-minute discount. Before I could talk myself out of it, I booked a 10-day stay, using nearly all of my saved vacation days. The confirmation email brought the first moment of relief I'd felt since reading Allison's text. I spent the next few hours packing haphazardly, tears streaming down my face as I tossed summer dresses and swimsuits into my suitcase. I didn't care what I brought. I just needed to be gone, to be somewhere no one knew me or the pathetic story of how my best friend had decided I wasn't good enough for her wedding. My flight left in 36 hours. I just had to hold it together at work for one more day, then I could fall apart in private, on a beach thousands of miles away from the shattered remains of a friendship I had believed would last a lifetime. The moment I stepped off the plane in Liberia, Costa Rica, the humid tropical air enveloped me like a warm embrace. After 2 connecting flights and nearly 12 hours of travel, I was exhausted but relieved to have put physical distance between myself and the situation I was fleeing. A resort shuttle transported me along winding roads flanked by lush vegetation. Through the window, I caught glimpses of the Pacific Ocean, glittering sapphire blue against the horizon. Under different circumstances, the beauty would have taken my breath away. Instead, I felt numb, observing everything through a protective emotional fog. The Playa Serena resort was even more stunning than the website had promised. Open-air pavilions with thatched roofs, infinity pools overlooking the ocean, and tropical flowers in vibrant hues creating splashes of color against whitewashed walls. The receptionist welcomed me with a cool towel and a fruit drink, explaining the resort's amenities with practiced enthusiasm. "Your bungalow has a private terrace facing the sunset," she told me. "Perfect for a romantic getaway." "I'm alone," I said, the word sticking in my throat. Her smile never wavered. "Then perfect for relaxation and self-discovery." Self-discovery. Was that what I was doing here? Or just hiding? My bungalow was simple but elegant, with polished wooden floors, a gauzy canopy over the bed, and French doors opening onto a small terrace. I unpacked methodically, hanging up dresses I doubted I'd wear and arranging toiletries I might not use. The motions gave me something to focus on besides the hollow ache in my chest. Once everything was in its place, I sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly unsure what to do with myself. The silence was oppressive. No emails to answer, no campaigns to review, no wedding drama to navigate. Just me and my thoughts, a dangerous combination. I forced myself to shower and change, then wandered down to one of the resort's restaurants. Dining alone had never bothered me before, but as I sat at a table set for one, watching couples and groups laughing together, I felt painfully conspicuous. I ordered something I couldn't taste and drank a glass of wine that did nothing to ease the knot in my stomach. Back in my room, I made the mistake of checking my phone. Still no response from Allison. Claire had texted asking how I was doing, but I couldn't bring myself to answer truthfully. Instead, I sent a photo of the sunset and a brief message, "Made it to paradise. Signal spotty. Talk when I'm back." I turned off my phone and cried myself to sleep. The next morning, I forced myself to join a resort activity, a guided nature walk through the adjacent ecological reserve. Our guide, Manuel, pointed out tropical birds and plants with infectious enthusiasm, but I struggled to stay present. My mind kept drifting back to Allison's text, replaying those cold words like a tortuous loop. That bird is called the motmot, Manuel was saying, pointing to a colorful creature with a distinctive tail. They mate for life. Very loyal. Unlike some people, I thought bitterly. After the walk, I noticed a yoga class setting up on a platform overlooking the beach. I hesitated, then joined them, setting up my borrowed mat at the back of the group. The instructor, a slender woman with silver-streaked dark hair, introduced herself as Maya. Today we practice gratitude for what remains when everything else is stripped away, she announced, her accent melodic. Our breath, our bodies, our capacity to begin again. The words hit too close to home. As we moved through the poses, tears began streaming down my face. I tried to hide them, turning away and pretending to adjust my position, but when we reached the final meditation, a sob escaped my throat. Most participants were too deep in their own practice to notice, but Maya's eyes found mine. After class, as others rolled up their mats and departed, she approached me. "First time with yoga?" she asked gently. I shook my head, wiping my face. First time being abandoned by my best friend. I hadn't meant to say it, certainly not to a stranger, but something about her calm presence broke through my defenses. Maya nodded as if this made perfect sense. Ah. A different kind of pain, but still held in the body. "I'm sorry about the crying," I said, embarrassed. "Never apologize for honest emotion," she replied. "Would you like to talk about it? Sometimes a stranger's ear is easier than a friend's." There was something about Maya that inspired trust. Before I knew it, I was sitting with her at the beachside juice bar, pouring out the whole story: Allison, James, the wedding, the text that had shattered me. She listened without interruption, her expression compassionate but not pitying. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment, watching the waves. "When someone shows you who they are, believe them," she finally said. "But also remember that their actions reflect them, not you." "But I must have done something wrong," I insisted. "People don't just throw away 15 years of friendship for no reason." Maya smiled sadly. "Sometimes the reason has nothing to do with you at all. Sometimes people outgrow not just relationships but the person they once were. They become strangers even to themselves. So I'm just supposed to accept that? Move on like she meant nothing to me?" "No," Maya shook her head. "You honor what was real between you. You grieve what is lost. And then, when you're ready, you open your hands and let it go." Her words stayed with me throughout the day. That evening, instead of hiding in my room, I joined a group dinner for solo travelers. There were 8 of us, a recently divorced woman rediscovering her independence, a widower on his first vacation alone, a novelist researching his next book, and others with their own stories of rebuilding. Patricia, the divorced woman, raised her glass in a toast. To new beginnings we didn't ask for but might need anyway. We clinked glasses, and for the first time since receiving Allison's text, I felt a tiny spark of something other than pain. Not happiness, exactly, but possibility. The next few days fell into a gentle rhythm. Morning yoga with Maya, who became something of a guide through my emotional wilderness. Afternoons exploring the beach or participating in resort activities. Evenings with my new acquaintances, sharing meals and stories under the stars. On my 5th day, I joined a guided hike to a nearby waterfall. The trail was challenging, winding uphill through dense forest, the air thick with humidity. Several times I considered turning back, my legs burning with effort, but something pushed me forward. When we finally reached the waterfall, the sight took my breath away. Water cascaded down a series of rock formations into a clear pool below, surrounded by ferns and flowering plants. Our guide gave us time to swim, and I waded into the cool water with reverence. As I floated on my back, looking up at the canopy of trees and patches of blue sky, a strange thought occurred to me: Allison would never see this. In her world of designer boutiques and country clubs, she might never experience this wild, untamed beauty. For the first time, I wondered if I was the one who had gained something rather than lost. That evening, Patricia convinced me to join the resort's karaoke night. After 2 mojitos, I found myself belting out "I Will Survive" with more feeling than talent. When the final notes faded, the room erupted in cheers, and I realized I was laughing, really laughing, for the first time in weeks. "Look at you," Patricia said as I returned to our table. "There's life in those eyes again." That night, I sat on my terrace watching the sunset, reflecting on how much had changed in just a few days. The pain wasn't gone, it still ambushed me at unexpected moments, but it no longer consumed me. Maya had been right about grief being necessary, but she'd also been right about eventually opening my hands. I thought about Allison, trying to see our friendship objectively for the first time. Had there been signs before James? Moments when she'd prioritized status or appearances? Times when I'd felt diminished rather than supported? The truth was uncomfortable but necessary. Allison's betrayal hadn't come out of nowhere. It was the culmination of a slow erosion, a gradual shift in values that I'd chosen to ignore because acknowledging it meant losing the person I thought she was. As the last light faded from the sky, I made a decision. I would extend my stay by another week. Not to hide, but to continue the work I'd started here, the work of rebuilding myself without the identity of Allison's best friend that had defined me for so long. I fell asleep that night with the windows open, listening to the rhythm of the waves and feeling, for the first time, that I might eventually be okay. My extended stay had just begun when the first message arrived. I was having breakfast on the resort's terrace, watching hummingbirds flit between tropical flowers, when my phone pinged with a notification. After limiting my social media use for the past week, I almost ignored it, but something made me look. It was Jessica, a mutual friend from college who had drifted to the periphery of our lives after graduation. We kept in loose contact, occasionally liking each other's posts or sending birthday wishes, but we hadn't had a real conversation in years. "Brooke, I just heard what happened with Allison. I'm so sorry. I need to tell you something. Can we talk when you're back? Or call me if you want to hear it now." My stomach clenched. What could Jessica possibly know about the situation? Had Allison been talking to her? I hesitated, then typed back, "I'm actually in Costa Rica right now." "What's going on?" Jessica's response came quickly, "That explains why I couldn't reach you. I don't want to dump this on you during vacation, but I also think you deserve to know the truth. Allison has been saying some really awful things about you for months. Not just to me, to everyone in your old circle." I stared at the message, my breakfast forgotten. After a moment of deliberation, I pressed the call button. Jessica answered immediately. "Brooke? Are you okay?" "Define okay," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What exactly has Allison been saying?" Jessica sighed heavily. "It started small, comments about you being stuck in the past, not growing up. But after she got engaged, it got worse. She told people you were jealous of her relationship with James, that you were trying to sabotage her wedding because you couldn't handle not being the center of attention." Each word felt like a physical blow. "That's not true. None of that is true." "I know," Jessica assured me. "Anyone who knows you would know that. But Brooke, there's more." She proceeded to tell me about a dinner party 2 months earlier, where she'd overheard Allison and Tyler discussing me. According to Jessica, Tyler had been pushing Allison to make a clean break for weeks, insisting that I didn't fit with their social aspirations. "He actually said you were dragging down her brand," Jessica reported, disgust evident in her voice. "Like Allison is some kind of influencer and not a human being with actual relationships." "And what did Allison say?" I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. "She agreed with him. Said something about how James's family was already concerned about some of her less polished connections." "God, I'm so sorry, Brooke." After we hung up, I sat motionless, trying to process this new information. The betrayal had layers I hadn't imagined. Not only had Allison cut me out, but she'd been actively turning people against me, rewriting our history to justify her actions. Before I could fully absorb this, another message arrived, this time from Jessica again, with screenshots attached. "Thought you should see these. Vanessa posted them in a private Instagram story, but my roommate follows her. I opened the images with trembling fingers. They were photos from what appeared to be a bridesmaid's lunch. The first few were standard group shots, everyone smiling with champagne glasses raised. But as I swiped through, I came to one that made my blood run cold. Allison and her new bridal party were posing with handwritten signs that said things like "Upgrade complete" and "A-list only." One woman, I recognized her as the replacement bridesmaid, held a sign reading "Better late than never." They were all laughing, clearly celebrating my replacement. The final screenshot was of a comment thread beneath one of the photos. Someone had written, "What happened to the original maid of honor?" And Vanessa had replied, "Let's just say some people can't handle not being the main character. Bride sanity, sentimental obligations." Allison had liked the comment. I set my phone down, feeling physically ill. This wasn't just Allison moving on or outgrowing our friendship. This was deliberate cruelty, public humiliation dressed up as personal growth. Throughout the day, more messages arrived as word apparently spread that I was reachable again. Another college friend sent me screenshots of conversations where Allison had claimed I was becoming obsessive about her wedding. Someone else forwarded an email chain where Tyler had referred to me as Allison's charity case friend from the scholarship dorm. Each revelation was another piece of a puzzle I hadn't known I was solving. The picture forming was ugly but clarifying. In the afternoon, I received a call from Lauren, one of the original bridesmaids who had mysteriously dropped out months earlier. "I should have warned you," she said, her voice apologetic. "But Allison told everyone I left because of work commitments, and I didn't want to create drama." "What really happened?" I asked. Lauren explained that she'd overheard James and Tyler discussing the wedding guest list, specifically the need to curate the right crowd for the society photographer. When she'd objected to their dismissive tone, suggesting that weddings should be about meaningful relationships rather than social climbing, she'd been effectively frozen out. The next day, Allison called to tell me I seemed stressed and should probably focus on my career instead of wedding obligations, Lauren said. It was the most patronizing conversation of my life. By evening, I had heard from 6 different people with similar stories. The common thread was clear: Allison, influenced by James and Tyler, had been systematically eliminating anyone who didn't enhance their carefully constructed image. I was just the latest casualty, though apparently the one they'd been most worried about removing. The most revealing message came from Mia, who had been at a pre-wedding event I'd missed due to work. "I didn't want to tell you this," she wrote, "but now that everything's out in the open. Remember that marketing campaign you worked on for the Children's Hospital? The one that won an award?" I did remember. It had been one of my proudest professional achievements. "Allison told everyone you basically stole the concept from another agency and just changed the colors. James's mother was there, she sits on some nonprofit board, and she was horrified." Allison played it off like she was reluctantly revealing this terrible truth about her dear friend. "It was obvious she was throwing you under the bus to impress the woman." The accusation was so ludicrous it would have been laughable if it hadn't been so devastating. My campaign had been entirely original, developed through weeks of research and creative collaboration. For Allison to suggest otherwise wasn't just a lie, it was an attack on my professional integrity, potentially damaging my reputation in circles that mattered for my career. That night, I sat on my terrace watching a tropical storm roll in over the ocean. Lightning illuminated the churning waves as rain began to pelt the roof. The weather matched my emotional state, turbulent, electric with anger, yet somehow cleansing. For the first time since receiving Allison's text, I felt something beyond hurt. I felt rage, not just at being discarded, but at being vilified to justify the discarding. And beneath the rage was something even more powerful: clarity. The Allison I had loved, the girl who had held me through my father's death, who had championed my dreams, who had promised to stand beside me through everything, that person was gone. Perhaps she had never really existed. Or perhaps she had been real but had chosen to become someone else, someone who valued status over loyalty, appearance over substance. Either way, the truth was undeniable. I hadn't lost a friend when Allison sent that text. I'd lost her long before, when she decided that social climbing was more important than authentic connection. The only difference was that now I knew it too. As the storm raged outside, I made a decision. I would not respond to Allison with anger or accusations. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of knowing how deeply she had hurt me. Instead, I would acknowledge the end of our friendship with the dignity she had failed to show me. The revelation was painful but necessary. Like lancing an infected wound, exposing the truth brought both agony and the first real possibility of healing. I returned to San Francisco with a tan, a collection of seashells, and a perspective I couldn't have imagined when I'd fled 2 weeks earlier. The apartment that had felt like a tomb of memories now seemed like a blank canvas waiting for new beginnings. My first act was to draft a message to Allison. After multiple revisions, I kept it simple. I've accepted that our friendship has reached its natural conclusion. While I'm disappointed by your approach to ending it, I choose to remember the good years we shared rather than the painful ending. I wish you clarity on your path forward. Goodbye, Allison. Her response came hours later, a paragraph of defensive justifications and accusations that confirmed everything I'd learned in Costa Rica. She claimed I had changed, that I'd been unsupportive of her relationship with James, that I'd shown my true colors during wedding planning. The message ended with the suggestion that someday I might understand her decisions. I didn't bother to respond. There was nothing left to say. Instead, I focused on rebuilding. My sister Claire organized what she called a friendship cleanse dinner, inviting people who had reached out during my absence, Jessica, Lauren, Mia, and others who had witnessed Allison's transformation with the same dismay I had. To authentic connections, Claire toasted, raising her glass. And to my sister, who deserves nothing less. Inspired by my time in Costa Rica, I started a weekly hiking group. Our first expedition was a simple trail in the Marin Headlands, but standing on the cliffs overlooking the Pacific, I felt the same sense of perspective I'd found at that waterfall. Nature had a way of putting human dramas in their proper proportion. To my surprise, Maya emailed me a month after my return. She was planning a yoga retreat in Northern California and wondered if I might attend. We began corresponding regularly, her wisdom continuing to guide me through moments of doubt. Remember that forgiveness isn't about condoning what happened, she wrote in one message. It's about freeing yourself from the burden of resentment. You can release the anger without inviting the person back into your life. I worked on that forgiveness privately, not for Allison's benefit but for my own. Some days it felt impossible, especially when mutual acquaintances would mention the approaching wedding or when Instagram's algorithm would cruelly suggest I might want to follow Allison's wedding hashtag. But slowly, the sharp edges of betrayal began to dull. When the actual wedding day arrived, I deliberately scheduled a day trip to Point Reyes with Claire and her boyfriend. As we hiked along windswept beaches and through misty forests, I realized with surprise that I had gone hours without thinking about what might be happening at the ceremony. It wasn't until that evening, checking my phone before bed, that I saw the flood of posts from the society event of the season. The photographs showed exactly what I'd expected, an impeccably styled affair that looked straight out of a magazine. Allison, radiant in designer lace, surrounded by her carefully curated bridal party. James's family looking proudly on. Everything perfect, polished, and utterly impersonal. I studied Allison's smile in those photos, searching for the girl I had known. There was something performative in her expression, a happiness that seemed to be more for the camera than from within. Or perhaps that was just what I needed to believe. Either way, I closed the app without feeling the devastation I had feared. Instead, there was a quiet sadness for something precious that had been discarded, followed by genuine gratitude for the authentic connections that remained in my life. 6 months later, I heard through Jessica that cracks were already showing in Allison and James's perfect facade. Apparently, the social circles she had been so desperate to join had proven fickle, the promised career connections failing to materialize. There were rumors of tension between Allison and James's mother, of fights about money and social obligations. I took no satisfaction in this news. Whatever path Allison had chosen, I genuinely hoped she would find happiness. But I suspected that happiness wouldn't come from external validation or carefully curated Instagram feeds. My own life had taken unexpected turns. The hiking group had grown into a tight-knit community. My career had advanced after a particularly successful campaign. And I had started dating again, cautiously, but with an openness I hadn't felt in years. Nearly a year after receiving that devastating text, I ran into Allison at a coffee shop in Hayes Valley. I almost didn't recognize her at first. Her hair was different, her designer outfit replaced by simple jeans and a sweater. Our eyes met across the room, and for a moment, neither of us moved. Then she approached, hesitancy in every step. "Brooke," she said, her voice lacking its recent practiced polish. How are you?" "I'm good," I replied, surprised to find it was true. "Really good, actually." She nodded, fidgeting with her wedding ring. "That's great. I'm glad to hear it." An awkward silence stretched between us, 15 years of history and 1 year of absence creating an unbridgeable gap. "Are you still with the same firm?" I asked, opting for neutrality. "No," she looked away. "I'm taking some time to figure things out. James and well, it's been an adjustment." I could have pressed for details or offered hollow sympathies, but instead I just nodded. Life has a way of bringing clarity eventually. "Yes," she agreed quietly. "Sometimes too late." There was weight to her words, an unspoken acknowledgement that hung in the air between us. For a brief moment, I glimpsed the Allison I had once known, vulnerable, authentic, uncertain. But that glimpse couldn't erase the deliberate cruelty of the past year. "Take care of yourself, Allison," I said, meaning it despite everything. "You too, Brooke." Walking away, I felt a final piece of something settle into place. The friendship that had once been central to my identity was truly over, but I had survived its ending. More than survived, I had grown beyond it. Maya had been right about grief being necessary, about honoring what was real while acknowledging what was lost. She had also been right about eventually opening my hands and letting go. True friendship, I had learned, wasn't about longevity or shared history, though those things had value. It was about mutual respect, consistent kindness, and the courage to see each other clearly without looking away. It was about growing together rather than growing apart, even when paths diverged. Most importantly, I had learned that self-worth couldn't be tied to someone else's assessment. No text message, no matter how painful, could define my value unless I allowed it to. As I continued my walk home, I thought about the journey from that devastating moment in the break room to the peace I felt now. It hadn't been linear, there had been setbacks and difficult days, moments when the hurt felt fresh again. But each step, even the painful ones, had been necessary. The text that had once shattered my world had ultimately forced me to rebuild it, stronger and more authentically than before. For that, ironically, I could almost be grateful. Have you ever had a friendship end in a painful way? How did you move forward and rebuild? Share your experiences in the comments below. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in these painful life lessons can be incredibly healing. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories about relationships, personal growth, and finding strength after betrayal. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, the people who are meant to be in your life will prove it through consistent actions, not just convenient words.